Now, you had said when we connected with my mom and you're like, she's off doing so much. And she said, there's so much more that you can't even imagine.
Right. And so I believe that somebody like your mom has already gone on to the fifth dimension, which is a heavenly state. A lot of people want to label it as heaven.
Right.
But you have to have a light body to get there. So if you haven't been working on your light body or you haven't developed it through the fourth dimension, then that's probably where you stay for a while.
Right.
But if you've been working on it, you'll just instantly go straight to the fifth. And when you're in the fifth dimension, it's easy for you to access the fourth. So you can come back down into the fourth dimension, the third dimension, and visit your family. And in the fourth dimension, there are also gods, goddesses, demons, demigods, and demi-demons. And they're extremely influential on what goes on in the third dimension on Earth. They influence things in the fourth dimension, and that influences things here in the third dimension. So when we say that we're working with deities, we're usually working with deities that are from the fourth dimension.
Right. And then they influence because we learn from them. Okay. That makes
But they're also influencing different things that happen within the third dimension because they're so close. Just like the demonic realm in the second dimension can influence what's going on here in the third dimension. The fourth dimension can do the exact same thing through their energy. They can influence the way that we think, the way that we act.
We're just like the cream filling in the Oreo of dimensions.
Right. Between the second and the fourth.
We're the delicious part. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, on M theory, it says that the fifth dimension, you can travel parallel universes or places in the same place as ours in the same time. So if I'm in my house, sitting in my chair in my dining room, then if I were to hit the fifth dimension, I would be in a parallel universe in my dining room in this chair in the same time frame, basically. And that's M theory.
On the spiritual aspect of it.
Yeah.
Well, once you get to the fifth dimension, it starts getting a lot more fun. So once you get into 5D, you are a light body.
Right.
You're emitting your own light and your own energy. You don't need food. You don't need water. You don't need sex because you're illuminating every single thing that you need within yourself. So
you're constantly orgasming is what I'm hearing.
You're just at a very high vibrational level.
That's right.
Within the astral realm, and you're more free there. So you're free from most of the suffering that you experience in the lower realms. So even when you're in the fourth dimension, you can experience suffering. And suffering pushes you to do better, to move past that suffering and move higher up in the vibration. So, but once you get to the fifth dimension, like a lot of people get to the fifth dimension, they don't ever want to come back.
Right.
Because it's just so beautiful. And everything there is just... like we were talking about earlier, you can talk to a tree and you realize that it's glistening and it's glowing and it's emitting its own light, and it has a nervous system and it has a consciousness, and you can have a whole conversation with like a tree in the fifth dimension. And it's this like highly intelligent being of light.
We talked about your death story in episode 1 of season 1. And you talked about how you remembered and you went to this angelic realm.
Right.
I don't know if that's what you called it.
And those beings were all bodies of glistening light as well. And I had my God self with me in that experience, or my higher self. And when you're in the fifth dimension, you're what some people call a light body, or some people call it a diamond body, a rainbow body, a Christ body, an evolved body. There's like a lot of names you can call it, but it's an enlightened body is basically what it is. And so we all have that body, but most of us humans haven't tapped into it yet. And that's the part of you that generates its own light. So when you go there, you'll see nothing but like glistening, shiny, bright bodies of energy everywhere. And it's so peaceful and it's so beautiful, and all you feel is like love surrounding you. A lot of times spirits will go there and they just never want to come back.
So when you passed away and Basset came to get you.
Mm-hmm. I remember feeling that way.
But it was in the fifth dimension.
I was definitely in the fifth dimension or above.
Yeah.
Within that experience.
I know we had talked about that before, and you had mentioned when you connect to these different deities, you can go see them and what they've created in their heaven or their world.
Yeah, and that's basically what it is. A heaven, it's a heavenly state within the fifth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have low vibrational energy there.
Mm-hmm.
That's all in the fourth dimension and below.
So like if you are a Christian, for instance, and you talk about heaven and Jesus and that's what you believe in, and then you pass on and you're like, I'm going to go to heaven, and you're a good person and you go to the fifth dimension, yeah, you're going to go to heaven. Jesus is heaven.
Well, yeah, Jesus has a place.
Right.
In the higher dimensions.
Right.
So when you get into like the sixth dimension, that's when you're really dealing with a lot of like ascended masters. So you've got Buddha consciousness there. You've got Christ consciousness there. You have Krishna.
Right. They're creators.
They are creators. So they have their own domain and their own space within the sixth dimension.
Right.
So say you worked heavily and worship the Christ consciousness on the third dimension, and then you would go to the Christ domain when you get there.
Right.
So when you cross over, you're like, oh, Jesus, you know, you've been praying and worshiping. You'll be allowed to have access into the pearly gates, maybe.
Right.
You know, the Christ consciousness made pearly gates for people to walk into.
Right.
But if you don't have a connection with that deity, with that God, you won't have access to get inside of it. And that's like with any God or deity that you work with. If they have a domain and they have a space in that dimension. So like me, I've had connections with Kali and Ganesha and Basset and a few other goddesses and gods. So in theory, since I have a connection with them here in the third dimension, that when I cross over and my spirit gets to the fifth or sixth dimension, they're going to be like neighbors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I can go to Ganesha's.
You're invited to the
space.
cookout.
Yeah, I can come. I'm allowed because I built a connection. So when I get there and I look at Lord Ganesha, he's going to be like, Sahdi, hey, like I recognize your energy. Come in.
Yeah.
You know?
So you're going to have all these friends.
So I'm going to have a lot of friends when I get there. I'm not just going to be at one person's house for the rest of eternity. Like I'm bouncing around like
I'm not going to overstay my welcome.
There's a party over there at Shiva's house tonight. He's got his harem over there. Like it's going to be fun.
Yeah. You're going to have a blast.
For sure. Yeah. So the last thing that I want to talk about with the sixth dimension is that because you have a light body, you can also create your own space within that realm. So you don't necessarily have to go to Ganesha's space or any of these other gods, goddesses, or deities. You can create your own space. Humans can become gods in that way.
In the Bible, they talk about the creator wanting you to live your life like him. He wants you to be a creator.
Right. It's where you become immortal.
Yeah. Well, create.
In the higher dimensions.
A creator.
Exactly.
Yeah. You can interpret it that way if you are more aware of the higher dimensions. I feel like a lot of the Bible, people take it very literally or they cherry pick, but if you expand it and take it, he wants you to be a creator.
Right. And a lot of people look at the dimensions as up, down, left, right, but it isn't. It's expansive. So there's always space to create more.
Yeah.
Within that.
It's like Thanksgiving
it's just
dinner.
A never ending.
It's like they just
it's just like
your pants.
It's just like a never ending. So if you become a god, there's going to be room for you there. And you're just going to expand and become part of that.
Yeah.
I become a goddess in the higher realms. It's not like we're going to be crowded. There's room for everybody there, pretty much.
It's beautiful. Okay, well, in M theory, it says in the sixth dimension, you can travel through time in any of the places but the same location. And now I'm going to skip over just a bit. I did tie some fairies into this.
Okay.
So there's a Scottish writer called Patrick McNeill. In 1871, he wrote about Lucifer. And when Lucifer left heaven, the doors of heaven, the pearly gates, got slammed open and a bunch of angels were sucked out. And when God was notified, he came and shut the gates. And he said, let the angels that are in stay in, let the angels that are out stay out. And the angels that were with Lucifer went down to the second dimension. They didn't say second dimension, they said hell, but second dimension.
Right.
And the angels that were left on the in between became messengers of God. And it has said that those are where the fairies came from, that they're actual.
I believe that because we were talking about how when you go to the 5th and 6th dimension, that you can have full-blown conversations with a tree that's conscious.
Exactly.
And things like that. And fairies are known
to be
to
in
communicate
nature.
with nature.
Yeah. Well, there's a book called The Sky Shamans of Magnolia, and they talk about dimensions instead of being one on top of the other, that they're overlapping more like a holographic. And these places are populated by deity, spirits, and ancestors. And I would say fairies, because with that logic behind it, if you use M theory, it talks about time being relative in the 6th dimension. And if you use this book that talks about it, how they're stacked on top of each other, it would make sense that if we're in the forest and walk through a portal and end up in the fairy realm, like it's been said in different texts throughout time, researching fairies, I have found like in indigenous tribes that have nothing to do with the outside world, Scandinavia, Greece, Italy, all of them have texts and lore about fairies. They all talk about that when you get into the fairy realm and you're there for a day, but it's actually 100 years here in our 3rd dimension, because you're actually on the 6th dimension in the fairy realm. Time moves different. If you're using M theory, 6th dimension, and using what different scholars have said, it perfectly matches.
It lines up. I love that when science and spirituality like meet. That's like the sweet spot.
It is.
Like it's beautiful.
Because it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that resonates and makes sense. And here's some like scientific theories, like, and, you know, I don't know.
They're like, prove it. I remember being like little and they're like, prove it. Yeah. You're like, how do you know? I just know. You have to prove it. Okay, M theory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which would make sense to me, because if they were once angels, they would be higher vibrational. And when we think about fairies, we think about really high vibrational energy, right? Like super light beings, right? So that makes sense. Okay, so moving on, 7th dimension. So I'll just say real quick, the M theory says you can travel all worlds at any coordinates. So I can travel to Mars at any coordinates.
I don't have a lot about the 7th and 8th dimension.
Okay.
I feel like they're all still, and people aren't going to want to hear this, but within the 7th and 8th dimension, we're still within the illusion.
Yeah. Well,
we're still in the illusion in the astral realm. Even though it's a super high version of that and a super intensely high vibrational part of that, you're still in the illusion. Right. You're still in the astral realm.
So M theory says that the 8th dimension, you travel time in any universe, any coordinate. The 9th dimension, compare all universes in time. And I wrote down Doctor Strange and Avengers Endgame, because that's what he was doing. He was literally sitting there and meditating and seeing all possible outcomes. I don't, if you've never seen the movie, I guess it doesn't make sense, but he's a wizard. Yeah.
I don't think anybody that's like really listening to us has made it this far hasn't at least has some doesn't know it.
Yeah. Well, he's a wizard and he's meditating.
If you haven't, go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. But he's just basically seeing every possible outcome of their situation. And he's like, there's only one way to end this. Pretty epic, but
which ties into like parallel universes and who knows how many of those there are.
One of the string theories talks about where one of the strings could be wrapped going clockwise, and then the theory is that somewhere there's a string wrapped counterclockwise. And that is the theory that parallel universes exist, because if I flip a coin on whether or not I'm going to go to the grocery store right now and it's heads here, and then I go to the grocery store, get in a car wreck and I'm paralyzed, and then other parallel universe.
It's like the butterfly effect.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't go and I'm walking around just fine. Just like you've talked about mirrors or portals into other dimensions. And when you've looked in, I think we've talked about it on...
We talked about it on the dream
episode where you have Down syndrome. And that's a parallel universe or dimension.
Well, at least one of the parallel me's that I've seen.
Yeah.
So, and who knows how many I have of those, but the next over,
that's
the
what I was
closest
thinking,
to me.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how I can connect with her.
Right. Okay. So the last thing I have to say about M theory on the dimensions, it says the 10th dimension is the all know beyond this, nothing can be imagined by you, meaning you can't
Right.
comprehend it.
Really, you
Yeah.
can't. I mean, in our human form,
Mhm.
I don't think there's any way for us to really comprehend what's above that.
Right.
So people ask themselves, and I know I have, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
people out there that do, they ask themselves, well, what is the truth?
Mm-hmm.
And in your highest form, it's you.
Yeah.
So in these dimensions is where you become one with your oversoul.
Okay.
It's really hard for humans to grasp even the concept of what that is.
Mm-hmm.
The soul is the highest level of intelligence that
Mhm.
there is, like, period. You live this life on the third dimension, but what we don't understand is that you're not you. You're a soul playing the person that you're living as right now. And that soul on its highest level is so advanced that it can be you and be many other people at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The soul is an experiencer, and it's trying to have an experience and to grow. And even though it's all knowing, it plays a type of game with itself called amnesia.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all knowing, it's playing a game with itself called life.
Mm-hmm.
They call it the oversoul or the observer, because it's kind of observing what it's going to do with this amnesia. And in every single time that it's played this game, it does something a little bit different, just like you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like today, I might not be paralyzed
Right.
because I didn't get up and I didn't go do this one thing.
Right.
So it's interesting, but he's kind of like a puppet master.
Mhm.
I say he, it, your oversoul, the highest version of yourself is kind of just like a puppet master and playing this game and watching and being observing
Creep. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
and observing what you're doing with the life. With that being said, I'm experiencing myself as who I am as a human in the third dimension.
Right.
My oversoul, if you could imagine, is like the very top of my pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And as it branches down in other dimensions, I could be a goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And then trickles down from there. I could be in my lowest form. I could have a demonic part of myself that resides in the second dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes up through the dimensions. And I have other parts of my soul that are connected to me.
Okay.
To the main oversoul.
Could your main oversoul be two different humans at once?
Yes.
Could it be many different humans at once?
Could be all of us. It could even be extraterrestrial.
I'm wondering, okay, so my thought on
So if you want to take it a little bit farther than that, my oversoul might not just be playing the part of a human. It could be playing the part of an extraterrestrial. And it's past, present, future all at the same time.
I mean, it makes sense. Humans aren't the center of the universe.
Right.
We just like to think we are.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the reality we know. But you know how I think about soulmates? Like, I'm like, okay, you can be a soulmate to a best friend, because I just feel like in the quilt of humans, if we're all made from quilt, your soulmates are the people made from that same square of that quilt. They're your people. They're that you just connect with them. You're connected. Different from a twin flame. Now we're talking about an
oversoul.
I keep wanting to say overlord.
We can call it the overlord.
Yeah, the
That's
oversoul. Could the oversoul technically be the whole? Well, I'm saying like
pretty much like that
is the point of the pyramid, but
point of the pyramid.
Could the oversoul be the whole of two halves? So when you and your twin flame get together and you've learned everything you're supposed to learn and you're finally together, then do you ascend as your oversoul?
That's exactly right.
That makes sense.
But you have to go up on these levels because we have amnesia right now. Like we don't even remember who we are, that we are as beautiful and vast as we are.
Yeah.
You know, but we're so detached from that because we're on the third dimension.
Right.
That we don't even remember. Half of us don't remember. Most of us don't.
Well, it's not just you that has to not ascend.
We all have to kind of ascend as a whole, like a collective consciousness.
To actually move up.
And everybody will get there at some time.
Yeah.
You know, we just have to be patient.
I'm not patient though.
That's why you kind of have it in the levels. You know, you have the levels of where the gods and goddesses and the demons and the succubus and all that. And then you have like the spirits living there. And then you move up in the dimension from there. And that's when you know, Christ consciousness and different domains of gods and goddesses have their heavens there.
It is like a video game.
You know, and then
it is like a
fucking video game. And then, you know, you're light body at that point. So then you can make your own heaven within that realm. Right. And then you can move up from there. And as you continue to go up the pyramid, which now I'm thinking about pyramids. Don't get me started on pyramids.
Yeah.
But once you get to the top of that is where the real power comes from.
Right.
And I mean, imagine, like Alan Watts talks about it, and a lot of different people do, where if you were all knowing, how fucking boring would that be?
Right.
To know everything all the time, what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Our oversoul is so infinite that it would make sense that it would play a game with itself to break itself down into a billion trillion pieces and give itself amnesia to make it remember what it truly is. And that's the end game. So when we all as a human consciousness evolve to the point where we remember who the fuck we are, game's over, and then it starts all over again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the Matrix. So you have this like creator who you'll probably never know or meet or anything because they're just way out there. Right. They're the one that created the game. And then you have the engineers, and those are kind of like the gods and goddesses and deities and stuff like that. And then humans are the players in the game. And the soul knows that it's not real, but it still wants to play the game. It still wants to have fun and experience the game of life. The soul wants to experience like love, pain, war, broken bones.
Sex.
So down here, it's all about self,
yeah.
right? And we're at the most basic level, soul level that there is. But it's not really who we are.
And it feels like most people get there to different avenues, just the next dimension, beyond the veil.
Yeah, there's not just one route to
the overlord. I feel like I'm pissing something off up there. I'm like, sorry.
It's just yourself. It's fine.
It's just my soul has a sense, or no, sorry, just my spirit in this life has a sense of humor and can't take anything seriously because of trauma.
And that's a part of it too.
Yeah.
You know, like going through trauma, going through pain, like how beautiful is it that we get to experience as a human consciousness everything that we do on this planet and in this dimension.
Yeah. I don't know why.
I really don't want to come back though. Like, I really just want to like get through this life and experience it for everything that it has. And then I just want to bounce past the fourth dimension, go straight to the fifth and just start hanging out with Ganesha and, like, you know, all the deities. Girl? And
come get me.
Yeah, I've already met my higher self. She's a bad bitch. So
yeah,
I'm going to carry that light body with me.
Hell yeah. I need to work
on and that's what we need to work on, too, as humans and people that are listening right now. Really tap into, that's why it sounds cliche and it sounds like new age spiritual stuff, but like really tapping in to the higher parts of your own being that resides in higher levels. So I'm talking about your higher self.
Right. When you talk about your light body, you're talking about finding your higher self.
Yeah. Your astral form.
Okay.
The part of you that resides without a body in a different dimension.
Okay, so astral projecting. Okay.
Astral projecting, just really working on that part of yourself that isn't third dimensional.
That makes sense.
And tap into that. So when you do pass, it makes it easier. So you don't have to go through the struggle of the fourth dimension because there is still struggle there.
Yeah. So you don't try to astral project and get your head stuck in your body like.
Shut up.
Like Sahdi did.
Right. That was embarrassing. But I was learning. It's okay. It's okay if you mess up a little bit, but as long as you're trying.
Yeah, I mess up all the time. I should make y'all feel better about your path.
Paying attention to your dreams, like your lucid dreams. Those are different parallel places. Those are different realms that you're tapping into. And, the more you get acquainted with that, the easier.
Remember. Yeah.
The more you remember.
People that say they don't dream, it's like, no, everyone dreams. If you don't remember, you got to put some work into it.
Right.
I'm preaching that because that's me. I need to put more work into it. I love when we did our dream episode about lucid dreaming and I put a lot of work into it and it really was paying off.
Right. And I mean, it's okay to like also just be a human because we're here to experience and to have the human, the human connection. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing the game.
Yeah.
But there needs to be balance within it. As far as I'm concerned, like you're allowed to just like live your life and go to the movies with your friends and do whatever you're going to do like as this human. But you still need to tap into, because it's only temporary body.
Right.
You need to tap in so you don't end up going through the reincarnation cycle over and over and over again until you get to a point where you don't have to come back.
Right.
Now it would be you going to like the fifth dimension and beyond.
And hopefully you have friends there, not just your grandma. All right, friends, make sure you stay tuned for next week as we talk about our past, our path, and our present.
Namaste.